Okay. I see you now, Joanna, as a co-host.
Great.
And I'm admitting Alex. And I'm going to make Alex a co-host.
Okay. Do you see Anna in the waiting room?
I see Anna. Yeah, should she be?
Yeah, she's a presenter.
Okay. I'm letting Scott in.
Cool.
He's a co-host. Okay, you should be a co-host now, Scott.
Okay, I'm letting Thomas
Sounds
in.
great.
Cool.
The other person's an attendee, I think. We're missing one presenter yet.
Okay.
Now we all have power.
Ah, democracy.
Or oligarchy. I see him.
Okay.
Anna back?
Do we
Howdy.
have-
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
All
Thomas, are
right.
you there?
greetings.
Hi, everybody. This is Thomas.
Hi, Thomas. Anna, how about
How you doing, Alexandria?
I'm good.
Hi, I'm great.
Great. I guess we're waiting for Anna.
Anna's here.
Oh, she's here. Wonderful.
Yep.
Yes, I'm here.
Which
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Anna. Do all three of you need to share your screen? Because we were working out permissions for that. Or is one of you responsible for the screen?
It doesn't, it probably doesn't matter, you know.
Well, we can, I think I know how to do this, right? We make them all co-hosts and then they can all do it if they need to.
Yeah, my visage turns people to stone, so no need to show it.
Okay. Actually, Scott, or Trevor, I don't see the button to do that.
Co-host ability?
I can't make other co-hosts. I can't infect them.
Oh, geez.
I don't think I'll be sharing my screen for this meeting.
Okay.
Let me see if I can do it. Whoops.
Hi, everyone. Since it's 4:03, should we let our attendees in from the waiting room?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Anyone?
think so.
All right, I'll let them in now.
Thanks.
Okay. Making some co-hosts here. All right. Well, maybe we'll get this thing started here. Looks like we have a fair number of folks actually in the meeting here. My name is Trevor McSpadden, musician engagement manager with the Minnesota Music Coalition. Yeah, excited to learn a little bit more about NFTs. And I think I'll just turn it right over to Scott to get us started.
Thank you, Trevor. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, hey, everybody. Trevor reached out to me recently to say, hey, we're going to have a webinar on NFTs. And obviously, this is a topic that the music industry and other industries have been talking about a bunch lately. And I thought I would start with a few slides to set the scene of why we're even talking about NFTs, and then pass that over to several people who are actually putting NFTs out into the marketplace to gauge their effectiveness. And the way I sort of think about it is, We're always listening to our favorite music for inspiration. We're listening to our heroes to learn the licks and to learn the chords and all those things. Well, these days, we all need to be listening to each other to see what's working in merchandise, what's working in tour routing, what's working in revenue driving. And so I'm really excited to be here, and I'm glad that the MMC is hosting this conversation. Let me pull up a couple of slides that I prepared briefly. Here we go. All right, can everybody see that? Somebody give me a thumb.
Yep.
It worked? All right. So this is just a brief history of music formats and listening habits. If we're going to look over the last 50 years, there have been a ton of formats entering and leaving the marketplace, sometimes quickly. We're not going to dwell on this, but in the dark blue, that's the vinyl era. This light blue is the cassette creeping in here. Orange is the CD. Purple is the era of the digital download and the ringtone and other things like that. And green represents what we're seeing from streaming now. Not that long ago, CDs were, yes, the preferred listening format, right? There was a huge boom in right around the year 2000, where my understanding is 900 some million CDs were sold. Well, since 2001, CD sales have fallen 97% from that peak and moved only about 38 million units last year. With the advent of iPhones and other mobile devices, absolutely streaming has taken off. The last data point here is there's 443 million people paying for streaming. That jumped to 519 million in 2021. And while we're excited about that, as many of you know, even with over 500 million people paying into our streaming system, royalties can be really infinitesimal. They'll vary by platform, but on average, you're seeing about a half a penny per stream. So if we want to make any real meaningful revenue from that, the average artist would need 3.7 million spins per year to clear $15,000 of income, our minimum wage. And that's assuming that the artist is a solo artist. If there's bands, if there's ensembles, if there's labels involved, you're going to have a much, much higher number to make any sort of real income. And as I joked there, who really can live on a minimum wage? Right now, only the top 18% of streaming artists are generating that multi-million figure in streaming. And here's the other side of it. It's not just the challenges we're seeing in monetization. There's now over 70,000 songs being uploaded into Spotify every single day. And if you do the math, that's over 25 million new songs per year now entering the system. Sure, vinyl sales have been a success story recently. They doubled from last year, believe it or not. So 41 million units of vinyl sold in 2021. But with over 1 million musicians in the United States contributing, some easy math says that while vinyl has been jumping, it's not equally distributed amongst everybody. That's only an average of 41 LPs sold per individual. So in short, the world is really crowded and payouts can be challenging. So we're in this era of what else could we do? And I was just stumping on some of our local artists here. Dessa, when she dropped a record last year, had individual unique merchandise items, coffee, bags, clothing that was released with every individual single. Not that long ago, Jeremy Messersmith, instead of releasing an album, released a songbook with sheet music and then got people covering his new songs long before he ever dropped a physical record, right? There's lots of artists going on to platforms like Patreon and working off a subscription model. Cloud Cult actually has fine artists and painters in the band, and they're often able to generate more by auctioning their paintings than they are from any music sales. Martin Devaney, another local artist, just funded a vinyl press, but of course used Kickstarter, another crowdfunding platform, to do so. And actually just today, Dury, a rock band here in the Twin Cities that's making a big move, I just got their limited edition cassette. They released a cassette signed 300 units only with their new songs. I don't even own a cassette player, but we're all looking for creative ways to try and reinforce value into the marketplace, right? Everyone's trying something, whether that's live moments, whether that's live streams, whether that's exclusive merchandise, we're all trying. And it's not just independent artists. Famously, a couple of years ago, the Wu-Tang Clan made a single copy etched in platinum discs, wrapped in a box of their album Once Upon a Time in Shaolin. And they actually took that record to a fine art marketplace, auctioned it, and brought in $2.2 million, sort of pushing back on that scarcity issue to try and reinforce value. Well, today's topic, a lot of people are looking at NFTs, non-fungible tokens, as an answer. That non-fungible thing, if we think about cryptocurrency, a Bitcoin could be exchanged for another Bitcoin. NFTs are actually a very specific digital asset. And the way I like to think of them isn't just NFTs, but a limited digital asset. How could you put something in the marketplace but not have it like Spotify, where it's instantly everywhere and all you have to do is yell at Alexa and it pops up? NFTs live on blockchain. And for those that are not used to talking about blockchain, blockchain is basically like a registrar's office, a county clerk's office, any digital record holder, but it's distributed and duplicated to everybody on the network, thereby verifying ownership. So it's really hard to get in and hack and challenge who owns this very specific digital asset. And you could say that a digital ledger technology, DTL, a lot of NFTs have been developed on the Ethereum blockchain, although almost daily, I'm sure many of you are seeing, there are new platforms that are popping up to help artists bring their work into this exciting marketplace. All right, there are plenty of detractors with NFTs. There's a very high energy cost to host all this information and all of this data. And just like any other digital image, someone could right-click Save As and make a copy. You would own the original asset, whatever it might be, but there's still an opportunity for things to get replicated and pass around. I think what's interesting, though, for anyone who sort of challenges the excitement or value of NFTs in the marketplace, there are major brands and artists literally making billions of dollars already, such as Taco Bell, the NBA. The NBA is using some of their photographers to capture amazing game moments. And after the game is over, one image of that slam dunk, of that winning shot, that becomes an NFT. And they're raising a lot of money because it would be exciting to own that one moment of one of your favorite fans or your favorite teams. Now, last thing I'm going to say before passing it over to Alex is, for anyone thinking about making NFTs or anyone thinking of printing vinyl, remember this is about demand. If we as young artists or musicians don't have an audience, we couldn't monetize a hoodie. So thinking through this, it's a question of what might your fans like? The value of what you put in the marketplace is tied to you and your community. So that's sort of my take on where we've come from over the last few years. And now I will stop my screen share and let Alex, Counselor Mueller, take over, who's working with several people who are putting NFTs into the marketplace. Alex.
Thanks, Scott. I'm just going to put a document into the chat quickly for everyone to grab. Keeping an eye on the clock, and I do want to get to the exciting part. With the speakers that will talk after me, one of them is a client of mine, and he brought his team with him, experts in creating NFTs, creating value and hype around these things. What I want to cover with you just really quickly, in 5 minutes or less, this is the legal groundwork of what's going on here. So what I've dropped in the chat is actually the complete notes from a different workshop we had, which is on MMC's YouTube channel. You can go and watch it. It's about the Mechanical Licensing Collective, but this is the same slides I basically use for Music Rights 101 every single presentation I give. So the first couple slides in here are talking about what your rights are as a copyright holder. There's actually 6 of them. listed in the copyright statute. They don't match up one for one with the vocabulary that we use in terms of music rights. And it's really important to recognize that there's two different works involved. There's the underlying composition, or what would be on the sheet music, and then there's the sound recording. And those things often go to the same place together. For example, anywhere a recording goes, it's going to implicate rights concerning the underlying composition. But there are places, particularly with the composition or the publishing side, where that asset can go and it doesn't implicate the recording side. So when we're working in the digital space, we have to always think there might be different owners to these two things. It's not necessarily true that the person who wrote the song is also the one who performed it on the recording. So there's potentially a lot of people involved chasing after those, what Scott was talking about, fractions of pennies in the streaming space. So the other thing about NFTs to keep in mind is that these are structured as a license. You're not owning the underlying asset. You have a copy of it that you own as though you bought a piece of fine art, but you don't own the copyrights to that. So there's probably everybody heard about this issue in the last couple weeks because there was a lot of press around a DOA that obtained the manuscript for Dune and apparently thought they could make a movie based on that, and they owned the original and they had all the derivative rights and so forth, and that's not the case. The legal sector is not totally sure, just because it hasn't happened yet. We're not sure whether a copyright can be transferred through an NFT because international law is pretty specific about written requirements to actually transfer copyrights. And one of those things is it has to be done in writing and it cannot be anonymous. And so there's some questions when you're on blockchain about who you're really dealing with and can these things be transferred. So the NFT itself is essentially, it's a certificate of ownership for that underlying asset. So you have a copy of it, just like if you bought a book, you can throw away the book, you can tear it up, you can do whatever you want to that copy, but you can't make copies of it, you can't distribute copies of it or perform it or make derivative works or anything like that. So it's really important as you're thinking about potentially making an NFT, number one, don't use intellectual property that's not yours, whether that's a song someone else wrote, whether that's making fan art based on a movie. It's just asking for trouble. There's already been lawsuits filed by major brands over things like designer handbags, where someone made a virtual version of a Gucci bag and Gucci didn't make the NFT. So they're like, you can't do that. That's our brand and that's our copyright and that's not happening. So that's a cautionary tale. I think that was about all I wanted to cover. And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the actual NFTs. Oh, one last thing, I guess, the token itself has what's called a smart contract, and the smart contract will dictate what the holder of the NFT is allowed to do with it. For the most part, what we're seeing there is non-commercial use. So like if you have a video, say the underlying asset is a video, you can maybe put that on your social media accounts. You can maybe do some other things with it, but you can't monetize it in any way. And you just can't make copies of it. So you have to be careful what you're doing as an NFT owner, that you're not violating someone's rights or breaching what's in that license agreement that's contained in the smart contract. Yeah, I would tend to take questions at this point, but that was the nuts and bolts of the legal side, and I want to hand things over to Thomas now. And then I think Thomas, Anna, and Sabine, can you just introduce yourselves quickly before diving into what you want to share?
Sure. My name is Thomas. I'm a composer, mostly in the classical music niche. I've been doing it all my life. I remember buying Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon when it came out. And I'm developing with Sabin and Anna a unique launch, a Renaissance suite of NFTs. Many times the term NFT is thrown around to actually describe fungible tokens, It's not non-fungible. You take the Beatles' White Album, for instance, you would have to have the actual tape for it to be a non-fungible token. The copies of it, even if there's the scarcity aspect that Scott talked about, it's still a fungible token. But what we're doing is for lack of a better word, a meritage. Anna is a well-known artist who's sold internationally and lived in Europe. She's in New Zealand now. For myself, I work with a lot of other composers, but what we're attempting to do is to create something truly unique. And what we have developed is in the puzzle world, because everything right now tends to be filled with cryptography and steganography. And so that's what we're doing is a very unique project that is literally like a micro renaissance. That's where we're going. So I'll let Anna and Sabin take the floor from here.
Yeah, hi there, it's Anna Cooper here. I'm an artist from New Zealand. I'm also own an art gallery in New Zealand, and I'm a creator and a curator for that gallery. I'm also working with people in New Zealand for New Zealand NFTs. So we're hoping to run the NFT New Zealand and within the next year. We're working on a team with that. I'm working with Thomas in regards to Cicada 3301 and with an ARG and also a documentary that might be coming up as well. I've been working with Acon and Acoin in regards to Cicada 3301, and we did a drop on acoinnft.io. My background is actually several subjects. I spent 10 years at university. My majors were in religions, philosophy, law, and then I went into postgraduate studies in human security and international state of emergency and international law. So I'm very much have a background in law as well, which is very exciting for me. So I'll pass you now on to Sabin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sabin. I'm a smart contract engineer, blockchain developer. I minted NFTs for dozens of artists. I've sold hundreds of thousands of NFTs for artists from Akon to MF Doom. Anna and I actually met through our work with Acoin and Akon's brand. I've launched NFTs for the Vatican and His Holiness Pope Francis. I've built NFT marketplaces. And yeah, just speaking to, I think I have some examples under my belt, for instance, of merch drops that have happened with some artists like MF Doom before he passed. We did what his label called the most successful merch drop they've ever done. We sold even single pieces for 13 ETH, which even at the current prices, tens of thousands of dollars. And there are a lot of specific examples and things I've learned along the way through trials and tribulations. I've also worked a little bit in the music space with NFTs, very minimally, building a launch pad or marketplace, so to speak, for artists to have alternative revenue streams for their artwork. So I can speak to a couple examples of those kinds of things. It's nice to meet everyone.
So Anna or Sabin, did you have an example of an NFT that you built that you wanted to share?
I can share. For instance,
I think you all have screen sharing abilities if you wanted to pull up, images or something.
I'm on my phone currently,
Okay.
but I have, for instance, launched we made some 3D models of some MF Doom masks. I don't know if everyone in the call is familiar. MF Doom is a 90s rap artist who wears an iconic mask, and his label printed a bunch of alternative stylings of that mask, and we launched a couple of NFTs. And I built an auction platform. I built a sovereign blockchain that was completely gasless and didn't have to worry about the issues of the ecology ramifications. It was all instantaneous, so it was very easy for people to move funds around. And I think that I've learned a lot from various success stories. I think really my advice, especially to artists coming into the space, and what I've learned from some of the projects that didn't go as well. I've done projects that have had, you know, multi-million dollars dumped into them and only sold a couple thousand. And then I've had projects on a shoestring that have netted 5 million in a couple of hours. So really between the successes and the failures, I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned is that people, there are different types of people who are purchasing NFTs. You have the investors who want to see the price go up, and then you have the curators, so to speak, or people who are very, very interested in a specific topic. Like it's their favorite artist that they're buying an NFT just to show support to. They're never planning on selling it. They just want to show it off. They want to use it as their profile picture or whatever. And really between the successes and failures, I think I've learned that people want to own something unique, right? And that really boils down to the nature of what a non-fungible token is. A lot of people create tokens that are semi non-fungible, but there are, 20 copies of them, or 100 copies or whatever, and that's not as exciting to people as owning, for instance, like you mentioned, the game-winning shot of a basketball game when there's only one of those pictures, or and I think there are ways, and that it's much easier to sell one copy of a song for $1 million than it is to sell 1 million copies of that song for $1. I feel like, in my personal experience, but that's only because there are network limitations and it's very expensive given the current state of the infrastructure to move them around. So really the more expensive assets usually are the only ones people are interested in curating.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something that's important to mention too with music artists. It doesn't really work to release your song as you normally would and then also go and make an NFT of the same song, because it's not, you've lost the scarcity value. People can just go on Spotify or wherever and listen to it. So I think and maybe any of you can speak to what you've done if you've incorporated music or audio assets into an NFT, but what I've seen primarily is either it's an alternate take or an alternate mix that wasn't released on the album, or it's like behind the scenes footage, or it's something that they put together specifically for fans, and it's kind of like Kickstarter or Patreon on steroids, and they're like, we're only giving 5 people this song that we recorded. So
we're having even more fun than that, Alex. Music and art fans tend to be a highly engaged audience. You see Sotheby's and Bonhams and Christie's getting into the NFT game because, as Trevor was pointing out, it's a transformative landscape. So what we're doing is actually encoding music and geocodes into Anna's art. We're literally creating treasure maps that lead to physical treasure in different localities, whether it's Europe, Asia.
Can I pull up that image that you sent me? Is that was the one?
Sure.
Okay. Let me just screen share here. You can keep talking. I'll describe it.
Okay, great. So there's, we put up puzzles and we've got a lot of engagement. We usually will put up a poster, may have a QR code, It would lead to, perhaps something on the dark net, but usually a physical location where we will have something buried in the ground. And we're using Anna's art. Anna is creating treasure maps through, her art medium. She's creating a new type of art called fractal expressionism. It's for the quantum age. And so what we decided to do is, once again, a claret, a meritage. If you sell music on its own, well, I've been around the music business for a long time, and we all know that the artists usually have deleterious experiences with music intermediaries. They sue their managers and companies. The low payout to the artist is always a drag. But with NFTs, it's exciting for us, not just because we can bypass the traditional gatekeepers, but because we have a digital landscape that we can populate in new ways, and we can create new paradigms. Do you remember, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but masking, which was backwards music, that was something that was very big in the 60s. The Beatles came out with an album, and it sounded like Paul is dead when played backwards. And that was a fascination for the general public. Now, we've only gotten more puzzle curious as time has evolved. And so we're looking at NFTs as a launch pad, not only for art and music, but for literally treasure hunts. We literally are looking to ignite gold fever.
So it's interactive in the real world on top of being something that's cool to have in your digital wallet.
Absolutely, 100%.
So I've got this image on screen now. I don't know, Thomas, if you're on your phone, if you can see this or not, but what if someone bought this NFT, what are they getting? They're getting the image, and are they getting an audio asset, and then they're tasked to decode this picture somehow?
Exactly. They will buy the NFT, and then they will get a clue that no one else will get. And that clue may lead to a physical location. They can hire someone to go dig it up, or they can travel there themselves. We also are using dark corners of the internet to maybe add a second clue or a third clue. So what we're trying to do is kind of the same feeling that happened in late 1848 in California, where you had gold fever, and we're trying to avoid the prisoner's dilemma. I'm sure you guys know what that is. We don't want it to be overcrowded. California, at one point, there was a lot of gold being found by a certain number of pioneer miners, but then it got to be overkill, which is less and less finds, less and less discoveries, because you had all the rivers being panned, and you had the pike axes and all that. We want to literally create a network, and a network in this day and age is, as Anna and Saban and I were talking, is very much like owning a European textile mill in 1780, or owning an oil refinery in 1870. So we've got some pretty unique ideas.
Yeah. And I think Thomas touched on one thing that I just want to expound on for 1 second, which is the idea that by doing something different with an NFT, that's really what contributes to the demand. Because somebody takes a photo of themselves every day for a year and then sells each of those photos as an NFT. People think it's hilarious. Everyone wants to buy one. The price shoots up. And and it goes for tons on the secondary marketplace. Then somebody else tries to do it and nobody wants to buy it because it's been done and everyone's like, yeah, that's funny, but somebody made that joke already. So in monetizing artwork as an NFT or monetizing music, before there is this idea of a standardization model, there really is still that work for the artist to put in, which is like, how am I going to utilize this new medium to create a product that people want? And it's not always as simple as putting out an EP as an NFT, because that will probably do the same numbers as a regular EP unless there's some sort of what is being utilized a lot now is what's called the token gated community. For those who don't know, it's basically an area, whether it's an area on the internet or an area in the real world, or a certain song or a certain page that can only be unlocked if you are the owner of one of these NFTs, right? So I think that's utilizing the idea of a token gated community and some of these other aspects where there's room for innovation. Artists can really create a new revenue stream that has never been seen before, and then that eventually will be standardized using the best model.
Exactly. Look at Grimes. She did a drop called War Nymphs. Now, of course, she was dating Elon Musk, but it was once again a meritage. It was a digitally created art and video set to music, and I think she was selling it on Nifty Gateway, and I think 7 million was raised. Now we have a puzzle called Scale 3301. It's been around since 2012. There's still a lot of fascination, a lot of engagement, and so we're adding additional elements where it's not just art and music, but an actual treasure hunt. And we recognize that treasure hunts have always fascinated mankind. So that's ultimately what people do when they go to an auction house. They're seeking treasure, treasure that Sotheby's has found, or it's the reason why archaeologists do what they do, and paleontologists and whatnot. People are always searching. They always seek patterns, and they seek what is hidden, what is arcane. They have this natural need to seek treasure. That's really what we're talking about.
I think one thing that our audience will be curious about too, as Thomas is talking about treasure, is does treasure generate continued revenue, or is this a case where you sell it one time and that's all you're going to see from it? Because in my experience, at least, and there's some exceptions to this, but like one of them is a record label that built their own blockchain, so they're able to manipulate how the NFTs actually function in the real world after the fact, whereas most NFTs are built on someone else's blockchain. So you're giving some private person a private license to do non-commercial things with this asset. It's not going to generate royalties for you the same way that spins on Spotify would, or a live performance would. There are ways, however, to incorporate the original creator on the smart contract. Is that right?
Correct.
That's correct. And the smart contract, one thing to note real quick, is that the smart contract also has its own license. I MIT license all of my smart contracts, and that's actually signing over the rights to the underlying code to usually an open source license.
Because there's actually, like, when you look at one of these things on, I don't know if we'll have a chance to go over and look at one, but like OpenSea, for example, is one place where you can make and buy these things. But there's actually three versions of the smart contract, and one layer is kind of a machine readable sort of code, and another layer is one that humans can make sense of and lawyers would look at.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in here, there's a couple of different ways of making money off the NFT. So once the NFT is actually sold, then of course it goes onto a secondary market and people can make money off that. And the other way of doing it is like developing like an ARG or a reality game or something, or and another way is tying that back into like a token. So like you buy the token, you buy the NFT, and then that will literally give you a way to earn an income. So that's another way, which is jumping into the markets as well at the moment. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot more laws coming out on that as well.
Can you expand a little bit on that? I think maybe I'm not clear what the secondary market is either, and that could be beneficial to everyone else too.
Okay, so the secondary market, well, you buy your NFT and then you can put it on the market again. Okay, so I've worked a lot with OpenSea, but I've actually recently moved over watching crypto.com, which I don't know whether any of you have actually got accounts with crypto.com, but they're getting very big. They released a NFT series and they seem to be selling out every 24 hours at the moment. They're quite incredible, turning over $35 million a day on these things. No, straight away onto the secondary market, they call what they flip their NFT. And they put it straight back onto the market. And some of these are going from, well, they bought them for $40 or $800, and like the next day they're $1 million. Okay. You know, so that's interesting. Market is actually bigger than the first market.
Okay, that's interesting to me, because I was having a conversation with someone about if they should become an NFT speculator, and I'm like, I don't think people are doing that much right now. I think it's the fans that are buying these, but maybe I'm wrong, and they're flipping them.
Oh, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Basically
they're
what
definitely doing
day
it.
traders have
They're
become.
Definitely doing it. Yeah, absolutely. So the share market it's switched over to the crypto market, switched over into the NFT market, basically. So like anything that's got to do with money, they're going to switch over. And at the moment, the popularity of NFTs is growing very, very fast.
Okay,
yeah, and what I can say also, if I can add, you know, the OpenSea model is something that will be fossilized within a year or two. Right now, a creator puts up an NFT for mint. You know, early adopters pay a mint price. Let's say it's $100. Then they sell on a secondary market for an arbitrary premium. Let's say it's another 30. Secondary market buyers pay the premium. So we've got 130 there. Then secondary buyers then do a relist and add another $50. There's no real in-depth understanding of why each person is buying or selling at the price they do. It's pretty arbitrary. Right now, the general view is that evaluation and pricing of NFTs is subjective. And so what you're discussing is how to create different incentives so the NFTs hold both intrinsic and extrinsic value. And right now, yes, there's a lot more failures than successes, but as I said, this is an evolving animal. It's at you know, the NFT market is basically in third trimester. It literally hasn't even completely been born, in my opinion. We're not going to recognize it in another 10 years. There's going to be so many innovations.
Absolutely. And on that note, I saw a graph yesterday where it went in with how the internet or the World Wide Web started to grow. And in regards to NFTs, we're actually still only at 1989, 1990. So that's the projection, and it's running directly in line with that.
Scott, did you have a question?
If I could jump in with a question, Alex, if we're going to tie together the basic rights background that you brought to the table and what Sabin was sharing in terms of how do we define and build out what we're going to do, Thomas, I have a question for you and Anna. You know, I've worked on a lot of large scale projects with clients where, hey, anything's possible. And looking at what you're doing, this is not something that you came up with in an hour. I mean, you guys have obviously iterated on this, and I'm wondering if you could just give some visibility to that. Was this a multi-month conversation, a multi-day conversation? What took you from we're going to do it to here's how we're going to do it with the treasure hunt? Because that seems like a really great refined idea that will help keep its value to what you were both speaking to.
Sure. We actually started the puzzle in 2012, and we were literally seeking the most adept people we can find within the arts community, storytellers. At this point right now, we've got people who are part of our puzzle world that have great credibility. So you're right. It wasn't something that happened out of a single conversation. It literally happened over an almost 10-year period right now. And what we would do is we would drop a puzzle, usually on one social media platform, and it would be on the Feast of the Epiphany, which is traditionally 12 days after Christmas. So it's a time in January where, you know, if you're in the snowy part of the world, you're sitting at home, kind of gearing up, getting ready for the weather to get better and work to get busy. But literally, we fascinated people with it. So it's global. We have a solving community that is huge, and we felt at one point we needed to find an artist that would reflect what we do. So we found Anna Cooper. Just, you know, you can get lost in her art. I hope, you know, that after our podcast, you know, Anna can send some of her work there. It's amazing. And then we wanted, you know, the best software architect out there, and that's absolutely Sabin. So, you know, we're looking for only the best of the best. I know that sounds elitist, but our puzzles are a combination of cryptography, arcane history, computational math, music that can be encrypted and decrypted. And so literally we're looking for a community of puzzle masters to create gold fever. And once again, I know I'm talking gold fever, but the same reason why people buy lottery tickets is the same reason why Heinrich Schliemann, you know, ruined an archaeological site to find Troy, and the same reason why, you know, Mel Fisher was diving in the big drink. It's all the same. You know, how do you create passion and engagement?
I think that ties back into one of your early points, Scott, that if you don't already have the audience, it's a bigger challenge. And it sounds like Thomas' angle was they already had the audience from 10 years ago, and now it's what do we feed them next?
Exactly.
Great. Are there other questions? I forgot to say we would take questions as we go, but if anyone has any questions, you can unmute or drop them in the chat.
I actually have a question for Sabin.
Yes, sir.
You're doing NFTs for the Vatican. Is that historical? Is it art? You know, they tend to be art. Okay.
So I don't want to speak too much on it because of the complex nature of the current political situation within that organization. But essentially I partnered with his charity, the Pope's charity, Scholas Occurrentis, and it's artwork that was painted by him. We had a motion engineer come and animate it a little bit, and then he did a number of different pieces that were collaborations with other artists, including Mr. Brainwash, who's a well-known graffiti artist, and a couple of others. Purchasing those NFTs was not necessarily something I'm not going to actually dive in too deep, but yeah, that was the essence of that. It was an art piece. But speaking to answer the previous question, building an audience is not necessarily required before you launch an NFT, because launching an NFT is an audience. When you launch an NFT, you're already broadcasting yourself to, you know, as you say, the NFT speculators, which were day traders a few months ago, and now they've realized that all of the money's being dumped in this other market. So you can, by just partnering with a corporation like OpenSea, who I have a partnership with, and a number of others, original content. There are a few more to name, and you don't have to necessarily build your own platform. You can utilize and leverage these existing marketplaces, similar to if you were creating a new cryptocurrency or creating an IPO for a corporation. I see that there's a hand raised.
Yep, there's a hand raised and there's a comment in the chat, which I saw first, so I'll just go in order. Can someone comment on the average cost to mint an NFT? Like, what do your startup costs look like if someone here wants to go and make one?
Yeah, so it depends on the method of launch. As you say, you can launch on a pre-existing blockchain, the most popular being Ethereum. And by doing that, you usually incur very, very heavy gas fees, because the network at this time is extremely expensive. But at the same time, you're dropping your NFT into a marketplace that is expecting valuable items, right? Because sometimes to launch a new NFT collection, for if you aren't partnered with another corporation and you're using the Ethereum blockchain, it runs about half an ETH in gas, which right now is 1,125 or thereabouts. So, you know, that can be the cost, but there are other networks, like for instance, OpenSea utilizes a network called Polygon, which usually for a new NFT to launch, it's in the order of 80 cents or less. So you can create a whole collection and everything for 80 cents or less. Also, there are platforms that have sovereign blockchains. So you can create, you know, you can create this is more for the technically inclined folks. I wouldn't recommend doing this if you're an artist or musician, but if you partner with, for instance, a marketplace that has created its own blockchain, usually you can incur no fees at all, and just have them launch it on their network, similar to how a bank would store your information on a server. I hope I adequately answered that question. I would recommend for high value items, paying that extra cost of $1,000+ for a collection to have access to that heavily curated marketplace. But if you're looking to sell like 1,000 copies of a $1 NFT or 1,000,000 copies of a $1 NFT, definitely the place to look is more on a secondary blockchain, because the gas fees just to move a NFT around, to send it to your friend, for instance, or to sell it on the secondary market, can be hundreds of dollars if the network's congested.
Yeah, can you back up and cover what gas fee means, because it fluctuates and it's not really intuitive to anyone that's not been in crypto before.
So the more people who are trying to execute transactions on a network, on a blockchain network, the higher the gas fees, otherwise known as network fees, will be, which is basically paying to prioritize your transaction above everyone else's. So, for instance, if there's a heavy demand for an item, like for instance, if a popular artist is coming out and only selling 100 copies of this NFT, you can pay more than your competitors to be able to be the first one to purchase it. If everyone tries to purchase it at the same time and one person pays more than everyone else, they're first in line, because the blockchain miners want to execute that transaction and get that network fee in exchange for registering that person's transaction. So essentially, yes, gas fees fluctuate. That's basically the cost to do anything on a blockchain. If you want to move an NFT around or sell it, you will incur some sort of gas fee, depending on the network. Some networks are feeless, usually centralized networks, which cannot guarantee longevity. So as you said, in a blockchain, there's a lot of replication across, tons of different servers or nodes. And if you are on a centralized system that's owned by, for instance, Binance or, another corporation, and that corporation were to go bankrupt, well, then your NFTs are gone too. The ownership is no longer registered. So you have that trade-off where, you don't have to pay the same amount of fees, but you are reliant on some governing body to be in business for a certain amount of time. And that's why I think Ethereum NFTs are more highly regarded in terms of future speculation.
Nice. All right, Andrew has his hand raised.
Hey all, thanks for doing this. This is awesome, great topic, and I know it's just going to become more and more prevalent in the future. My question is have you ever heard of anyone utilizing blockchain or NFT technology to do concert sale tickets, where maybe like a fan buys a ticket, and then if they sell a ticket, then they get a cut of that proceeds, almost like a referral code or something like that?
Live Nation is considering that, but right now we're in pandemic times. So, I can tell you, Joshua Bell, one of the most famous violinists in the world, he's got 4 concerts on the books. Concert gatherings, because of the COVID, it's a tough proposition, and it's actually, even though it's deleterious to the artists and the not the composers, but the artists, it's actually really good for the composers, because we get work to provide more content for shut-ins, essentially cyber hermits, which is. But I wanted to say one more thing too, which is the conversation started out with Trevor, and what he was basically saying is there's no real agreed upon way to calculate intrinsic value of digital assets, and so you see the people who are promoting cryptos and tokens, and they say price is the only measure of value. You see the people who hate NFTs, they're saying price is the only measure of value. But even if we assume that digital assets have zero intrinsic value, if people are still willing to pay a premium above intrinsic value, that means that value is the measure of price. So they have things backwards, at least in my view.
Yeah, I also have a little bit, a very, very minimal amount of experience with concert sales, specifically in the form of NFTs. And I think that one of the great, before I talk about that specifically, one of the largest NFT projects in the world, Bored Apes Yacht Club, which, I'm not a huge proponent for personally, but it basically allows all the holders of this NFT to go to a yacht party once a year, or go to some other party, every other month or whatever it is. And so, and that's essentially the same thing as a concert sale. And you'll see that the price for those is the highest of any NFT, almost, in terms of the floor price, meaning the lowest price that one of those assets will go for. There are 10,000 of them, and they're all slightly different. But essentially, it's really built around a community, and being able to leverage a community. For instance, if you're a punk artist, by leveraging, all of the punk people, you can create an NFT that, allows access to a heavily curated punk community, and or a surfer community, or any type of community by allowing access, and that can be in the form of a concert specifically. I think that yes, using NFTs as a concert ticket is a great idea, because not only will it, even if it's a one-time ticket that people use to get into a concert one time and then never use again, they'll still have that laying around as a digital asset that is basically a cryptocurrency that they can sell on the secondary market later, similar to how someone who went to Woodstock might auction off their ticket to Woodstock as being a historical artifact.
Just make it attractive looking, right?
Yeah, like think if from that one concert with that NFT, you also get access to a video or a MP3 or WAV file of the concert too, like the live recording. Or if that individual brought 5 of their friends and got them to buy in, they would get us like a cut, like a 5% cut or something like that of every friend that they brought along. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of different ways to utilize it to encourage people to go to live shows.
Absolutely. You can use any utilization that you want to, and you can add contracts to the NFTs. Now, NFT Denver is doing this exact thing right now. So all the tickets are NFTs. And a guy to follow on the internet, whether it be on Instagram or Twitter, is Gary V. And now Gary V seems to get all the information. It's definitely Gary V. You've definitely got to listen to this guy. He seems to have all the ideas, and he throws these out every single day. And everybody is just trying to utilize what they can do with the NFTs. He's talked about how if you buy a pizza, the ticket for the pizza could be like the pizza shop, and you then turn around and sell that ticket online as a secondary NFT, and then that secondary NFT gives a percentage of 5 to 10% back to the shop. So you're actually supporting the shop owner. So basically, anything that you want to create utility with, you can add on to an NFT, and then create more utility by adding that into the secondary market and supporting businesses on the ground. One of the important things that haven't been spoken about, but although Sabin did actually touch on, was community. And like if a whole lot of artists get together, that broadens the scope of the whole entire project. Now, a lot of artists are used to working by themselves, but in this particular industry, it's not like that. You actually need to work with a lot of different people, because everybody has different skills. So if you can get 50 musicians to work on a piece, that will actually broaden your community. It will increase your profile, your marketing, your social medias, etc., and then your returns. So I think that's definitely a subject that musicians that want to get into the industry and artists that want to get into the industry definitely have to look at community. The places that you need to do that, to actually find those, is Clubhouse. Clubhouse was very strong in the last year on the NFT communities, and I joined them when they first started. I was actually there when they were dropping the Bored Ape, so I was there when they were dropping quite a number of different famous NFT programs, and these guys built big communities, and that's what they were about. So then they share those particular little gifts on their Twitter Spaces and on Twitter and on their social medias, and that makes them a community, and then it makes them feel good about themselves. So like what Sabin also said was that with the Bored Apes, they can go to this yacht party, but it also gives them options into a Discord, which is a area where they can talk privately, because they are part of that particular group, they're part of that particular community, and from that they get first opportunities into buying, say, something else which off leads from the Bored Ape community or from the community to entering into another market earlier than everybody else on the market. So there's all of these things about community that are really, really important. Clubhouse has recently gone down. They've changed their algorithms. So most people have now changed over to Twitter Spaces. I was there when Twitter Spaces first started. I was invited to be on their back channels when they hadn't even launched. It's very similar to Clubhouse, but now that has become the platform where all the NFT guys hang out. So that's another one that you should get yourself onto.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and if I could interject, Alex, you play cello,
I
correct?
play all of the things sitting over
You play a bunch, and you play music because music doesn't lie, right? Music doesn't lie to you. It's the reason why I'm a composer, and what we're really talking about to have a successful NFT is truth. Socrates excoriated the sophists because they made opinion a measure of truth rather than truth a measure of opinion. And in this modern NFT utilitarian economy, they're saying that price is the measure of truth rather than truth being the measure of price. And it has had a very deleterious effect on culture and personal health. And the pinnacle of this modern sophistry is something we call advertising. So we're looking at the NFT world and we're saying, as artists and as musicians, wow, this is a way for us finally to have a deeper engagement with our fans and our audience without the traditional gatekeepers who are going to try to take as much as they can and tell us that they're doing a bunch of promotion, right? You're going to be famous, right? So even the model of fame is usually built on narcissism and has been for a long time, since Louis B. Mayer and probably before. But what we're doing is we're making it very organic, and truth in message is extremely important to us with our launch of NFTs. So it's a treasure hunt, but it's not going to be something bogus. We actually have physical objects secreted in the ground in multiple locations all over the world right now. And some of those objects have been in the ground for years. So we're making a real life global part cyber, part physical treasure hunt. So it's pretty unique.
Very unique. I hate to cut us off, but I see we've come up on our hour. I guess there's one final question is, do you recommend any resources? Are there step-by-step videos if people want to go out and start minting their own NFTs?
Yeah, I actually have one thing to say. I'm sure Anna also has a lot to contribute, and possibly Thomas as well. But one thing I wanted to say about that is there are still the traditional gatekeepers out there, and it's very easy to get swindled by someone who says, oh, I can do a bunch of promotion for your NFT, or oh, I would make a great consultant for your NFT project. Just give me this percentage of it and I'll make sure that everything goes well. Most of the time in this space, artists can really judge what will go well and what won't. And really, consultants usually end up being a hindrance to that and just a waste of money. And so I'd recommend artists to just trust themselves, look into projects that are doing well on OpenSea, which is the largest NFT marketplace in the world, and draw ideas from that. But you don't necessarily, the whole point is to innovate. So there is no, tutorial for the best way to do it, but there are tutorials for certain ways to do it, for instance, on YouTube. So I'll let anybody who has specific resources take that baton.
Yeah, we're really discussing cultural economy. And so if you take a look, Sabin and I were talking about Web 2 and Web 3. Web 2 cultural economy is pretty traditional. It's based on an advertising revenue model, which is why some of these NFTs just don't sell. The Web 3 cultural economy is based on active and productive learning. Its value is not based on propaganda, but on peer-to-peer connection. So if you're looking to create an NFT, that's where I would start looking. I would start poking around and seeing what Web3 is too. It's not for the faint of heart, but nor was the Wild West.
Hey, I hate to jump in here, but I think we need to wrap up our meeting. I know there's a whole lot more to say, and Alex actually called this out well before as we were planning this. Like an hour is really not enough to accurately or adequately get a full picture here. But I think we've got a nice head start, and I really appreciate all the guests, and having some real tangible, real world experience about how this works has been super helpful. And again, Scott, thanks for kicking things off. Alex, really appreciate you assembling the team. So yeah, if anybody, if I can, I'm happy to make more connections. If you want, I can put my email in the chat. So if there's any further questions or connections to be made, I can help manage that. Yeah, thanks everybody for being here today and participating. This was a real treat.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate being hosted. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks
right.
to everyone.
Thanks for your
Bye.
time.
Okay, take care, guys. Bye-bye.
All right.